Hi, this is Christina Shala, and welcome to another episode of Empowering the Educator Within. In today's episode, we're going to look at strategies for teaching academic content to your intermediate and advanced level ELL students. Before exploring different teaching strategies, it's first important to understand what the difference between teaching academic language and teaching academic content. Academic language refers to the teaching of Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3 vocabulary. For more information on these types of vocabulary, see the 3 tiers of academic language video. As for academic content, this refers to the teaching of curriculum objectives. So the standards that the ELL students must meet in each of the subject areas. A common question that I get asked is, why do I need to adapt academic content for my intermediate and advanced level ELL? Now that you've got an understanding of why it's important to adapt academic content for your intermediate and advanced level students, the biggest challenge when it comes to planning for your ELL students and assessing them is being able to merge. So before getting into different ways that you can differentiate for your intermediate and advanced level ELL students, what does differentiating mean? Well, it can be done in 3 different ways. The first is by providing them different sets of learning outcomes. The second would be allowing them to access the information in different ways. And the third, allowing your ELL students to demonstrate their learning in different ways. To start off with, let's take a look at some different strategies you can use to differentiate when it comes to reading. Now, your intermediate and advanced level ELL students, although their English is improving, you're still going to find that if you're giving subject-specific and academic texts in science and social and math, they still might be struggling with comprehension of what these texts are talking about. And so it is okay, even at this level that they're at, to allow them the use of Google Translate or Microsoft Translator to allow them to take a photo of the text and then have it translated into their native language or mother tongue, just so that they can take a look at it first in their own language, and then you can have them read the text in English afterwards. But that way you're ensuring that they've understood all the content that's being presented. Another thing you can do for your ELLs is to provide them with a simplified version of the text that you've given the rest of the class, or of the worksheets that you've given the rest of the class, just so that, again, they can access the information. And if you're looking for a handy tool that can make this very easy for you, you can check out EduAid AI, where you'll find a Lexile decreaser. And so what this allows you to do is to take a copy of the text that you've given to the rest of the class, paste it into the Lexile decreaser, and it will decrease the level of difficulty for you. Also, when it comes to outcomes, it's helpful to take a look at your ELL matrix in determining what would be the appropriate expectations for reading levels of your ELL students. And then lastly, to differentiate the assessments that you're giving your ELL students just based on where they are at on the matrix and the standards that they need to be meeting. In terms of listening, when it comes to differentiating for your intermediate and advanced level ELL students, for the most part, they're going to be okay just hearing the content being taught in English. However, if you feel that perhaps maybe some of your lower level intermediates might need that extra support in understanding what's being taught as the language is difficult, You might want to consider giving them a video on the same content where they can listen to it in their native language or native tongue and read the subtitles in English, just to ensure that they fully understand all the concepts that you're teaching. Other things that you can do to differentiate would be to give them different outcomes based on where they're at on the ELL matrix or the standards you've been given, and also differentiating the assessment expectations for them. As for writing, when it comes to differentiating, there are many different things you can do for your ELLs, including, first of all, allowing them to brainstorm their ideas or write their rough draft in their mother tongue or native language first. And the reason this is helpful is so that you're not impeding their creative thought process. And the reason I know this is, again, as I mentioned, when I switched over to the English stream, when I sat down to write reports or essays, I was thinking in French first. And had the teachers allowed me to write in French before writing in English, I would have found it very helpful. And so this is a great way that you can support your ELL students. In terms of assignments, differentiating the lengths of assignments that you give them, or perhaps the topics that they're writing about, slightly modified to make it a little bit more accessible for them and just give them a better chance at demonstrating their knowledge. Also, as mentioned with reading and listening, taking a look at that ELL matrix and seeing, okay, so the expectations for intermediate and advanced level students in their writing are this, this, and this. So instead of judging them on their regular language curriculum, when they're writing for you in science or social, you can be taking a look at the matrix to guide you in how to evaluate them. And then lastly, differentiating the types of assessments that you give them when it comes time, perhaps at the end of the term, and they've got a writing assessment to share their knowledge and demonstrate their understanding, just giving them a slightly different assessment from the rest of the class to allow them to do this. As for speaking, this is going to most likely be the one area where even your intermediate and advanced level ELL students feel the most self-conscious and anxious. And this is because a lot of times, even though their English has improved, they may still have a slight accent or a heavy accent, and this can sort of cause them some anxiety when it comes to presenting in front of the class. So some different ways that you can differentiate for them would be to allow them to present with a partner, whereas the rest of the class might be required to present individually. And this is just so that they have a bit of extra support when they go up in front of the class, and it makes it a little bit less intimidating for them. Also, providing them with different outcomes. So setting the expectations based on the ELL matrix or the standards that you've been given based on their level. And when it comes time to assessing, giving them a slightly different variation of the assessment that you've given the rest of the class. So it may be that it's shorter than what the rest of the class is expected to do, or on a slightly modified topic that they may find easier to explain orally or to present to the class. Now that we've explored different ways that you can differentiate for your intermediate and advanced level ELL students, let's move on to scaffolding. But before getting started, what does scaffolding mean? It means that you are going to be providing your students with strategies and extra supports to help them learn the content and also demonstrate their knowledge. Many of the strategies that I'm going to present for scaffolding when it comes to reading are the same as what I shared in the academic language video. However, they're worth repeating. First things first, as always, pre-teaching that vocabulary. Giving them a list of 10-15 words before a unit starts, just so that they can learn them gives them that extra jump start. And even though your students are intermediate advanced level, they can still benefit from this. To take things up a notch, in addition to word lists, allowing them to pre-read the texts. So, in science, if you know that you're going to be studying solar systems and you've got a paragraph you're going to share with the class, or a few paragraphs the next day, give it to your intermediate advanced level students the night before or a few days before. Give them time to look over the material. Give them time to highlight some key vocabulary that they may not know the meaning of, and look it up so that when it comes time to learning with the rest of the class, they've already got a good understanding of what's being discussed. Again, any visuals, diagrams, charts that you can give your ELLs to accompany the text that they're studying, always helpful. And then lastly, vocabulary walls. This is something you might be doing for your beginner ELLs anyways, but just having somewhere in the classroom just a wall of key vocabulary with some pictures or simple definitions, just so that they can look up, and just a nice visual aid for them as you're discussing different topics. When it comes to listening, different scaffolding strategies that you can use with your ELLs include repeating the instructions a few times, modifying the language that you're using to explain concepts to make sure that it's at a level that they can access, and also checking for understanding frequently. A lot of times your intermediate and advanced level students, they're a little bit self-conscious to admit that they may not have understood everything. So if you can just check in with them, verbally or non-verbally, just to confirm that they've got the concepts and it's solidified for them, that's always helpful. And lastly, as you're explaining information in class, including visuals is also a great idea, just so that they have an extra cue to help them with their understanding. Different scaffolds you can provide your ELLs with when it comes to writing include giving them extra prompts that the rest of the class may not receive, just to help them get started in getting their ideas out. Word banks are also a great tool, just to give them a start of what the expectations are and what they should include in their writing pieces. Your intermediate and advanced level ELLs may also benefit from extra time, as it might take longer for them to get their ideas out when writing. Giving them the option to use online editing tools to help them look for spelling mistakes and grammar mistakes is also great for them. Allowing them the use of bilingual dictionaries is also another great strategy, just because they still might be thinking of the words in their mother tongue or native tongue. And if they have the dictionary, they can sort of look it up in English, and it will help them improve their writing. Also, graphic organizers are a great tool, just to help them get their ideas out in an organized fashion. And then modeling is also really beneficial, because as I mentioned, when I was writing, when I was in high school in grade 10, I was thinking in French, and so my sentences weren't coming out correctly all the time in English. So if you provide them with some examples of correct ways and different formats for expressing their ideas in terms of sentences, your ELL students will find that very helpful. In terms of scaffolding for speaking, just keep in mind that although your intermediate and advanced level ELL students might appear to be communicating okay, their English is should be at a good enough level by this point, just be mindful of the fact that they're probably still going to be making some errors, especially when it comes to grammar and verb tenses, and just be mindful of that and know that that's okay. Also, they may still need that extra wait time to formulate their responses, so not rushing them and just allowing them to go at their own pace. And maybe not so much for your advanced level ELL students, but you might find that your intermediates may benefit from having some extra prompts that some of your other students may not have, just to get them started and help them along their way in expressing their ideas. When it comes time to evaluating and reporting on your intermediate and advanced level ELL students' progress in subject areas such as math, science, specialty areas such as drama, music, art, it's important to keep in mind that even though their English may not be perfect, they may have grammatical errors or spelling mistakes, or perhaps when they're speaking, the wrong tenses are coming out still. Or when they're reading, they're being given materials that are at an easier level so they can access the information. It shouldn't matter when it comes to the question of would they meet curriculum objectives, because if in some way, shape, or form they were able to demonstrate their understanding, then that means that on their report card you can give them at grade level or an A or a B or a proficient or whatever scale that you're using. Now, the only subject area where this would not apply would be language arts, because obviously that would be the one area where their English isn't good enough yet to be performing at grade level. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of Empowering the Educator Within. Join us next time to learn more ELL tips.